Hello there. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Right now, as you settle in, something remarkable is quietly at work all around you. It hides in the spiral of a seashell. It unfolds in the petals of a flower. It curves through the arms of distant galaxies. A simple pattern, repeating endlessly, connecting the smallest seed to the vastness of the cosmos. This pattern is called the Fibonacci sequence. It is a quiet rhythm written into the fabric of nature itself, a series of numbers where each one is the sum of the two before it. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and on it goes, spiraling outward through the living world. Closely tied to this sequence is the golden ratio, sometimes called nature's secret number. It appears in the way leaves arrange themselves around a stem, in the curves of nautilus shells, and in the proportions that artists have found most pleasing for thousands of years. Tonight, we journey into the quiet world of this hidden pattern. We will explore over 100 soothing facts about the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, from spirals in plants to the structure of galaxies, from the mathematics of growth to the art and architecture that echoes nature's design. There is no test at the end, no rush, no urgency, just the gentle unfolding of nature's secret language to carry you softly towards sleep. So let your breathing slow, let your thoughts grow quiet, and allow yourself to drift into the peaceful wonder of the Fibonacci sequence. Welcome to Drowsy Discovery. I am glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps you have had a long day. Perhaps you simply enjoy falling asleep to thoughts about the remarkable patterns hidden within the world around you. Either way, this space is for you. There is something deeply calming about contemplating the mathematics of nature. Every spiral, every branching tree, every arrangement of petals carries within it a story millions of years in the making. You are part of that story. The same mathematical principles that shape sunflowers and seashells are woven into the very structure of life itself. The quiet language of Fibonacci has been speaking through nature since long before humans learned to count. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. So settle in, let the weight of the day drift away, and let us begin with the first of many quiet truths about the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is patient beyond measure. It builds slowly, number by number, spiral by spiral. Each value emerges from the two that came before, creating a pattern that repeats across scales from the microscopic to the cosmic. And yet, within all that slowness, there are sudden bursts of wonder. The perfect curve of a shell, the precise arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, the sweeping arms of a spiral galaxy. Tonight, we will wander through this magnificent world of pattern and proportion. We will meet the spirals that guide plant growth. We will discover how nature packs seeds with mathematical precision, and we will uncover truths about the golden ratio that may surprise even the most curious minds. But there is no hurry. The Fibonacci sequence has been unfolding for billions of years. It can continue its quiet work while you rest. Let us begin with the wonders hidden within this simple pattern. The Fibonacci sequence begins with the simplest numbers. The sequence opens with such humble beginnings that one might almost overlook its magic. It starts with 0 and 1, two of the most fundamental building blocks in mathematics. From these modest origins, something extraordinary unfolds. Each new number is born from the sum of the two that came before it, creating a chain that stretches toward infinity. The early terms are small and unassuming: 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. Yet within this simple pattern lies a profound truth about how nature builds complexity from simplicity. The sequence requires no sophisticated calculations, only the gentle act of addition repeated endlessly. Its elegance lies precisely in this simplicity, in the fact that such a straightforward rule can generate patterns found throughout the natural world. From these quiet beginnings flows a river of mathematical beauty that has fascinated thinkers for centuries. Each number in the sequence is the sum of the two before it. This simple rule forms the heartbeat of the entire Fibonacci sequence. Take any two consecutive Fibonacci numbers, add them together, and the result is always the next number in the series. 1 plus 1 gives 2, 2 plus 3 gives 5, 5 plus 8 gives 13. This additive pattern continues without end, generating larger and larger numbers with perfect predictability. The rule means that each number carries within it the memory of the two that came before, creating an unbroken chain linking every term. It is a mathematical inheritance system where each generation depends entirely on its immediate ancestors. Despite the growing size of the numbers, the relationship between them remains constant and elegant. This recursive property gives the sequence its remarkable consistency and underlies the many connections Fibonacci numbers have to natural phenomena. The elegance of this building process demonstrates how simple operations can create structures of surprising complexity. The sequence was introduced to Europe in the 13th century. Although versions of this sequence were known to Indian mathematicians centuries earlier, it arrived in Europe through a book published in the year 1202. The Italian mathematician Leonardo of Pisa, later known as Fibonacci, included the sequence in his influential work Liber Abaci. He presented it as a puzzle about breeding rabbits, asking how many pairs would exist after a given number of months. The problem seemed playful, but the underlying mathematics was profound. This text helped spread Hindu-Arabic numerals throughout Europe, revolutionizing commerce and calculation. The sequence itself was almost a footnote in a larger mathematical treatise, yet it would eventually bear its author's name. Fibonacci could not have imagined that this simple series would one day appear in discussions of art, architecture, biology, and computer science. The introduction of the sequence to European thought set the stage for centuries of discovery about its surprising properties and appearances. His legacy continues to grow with each new generation of mathematicians and scientists. The golden ratio emerges naturally from the Fibonacci sequence. As the Fibonacci sequence grows, something magical happens. When you divide any Fibonacci number by the one before it, the result gets closer and closer to a special value known as the golden ratio. The ratio of 5 to 3 is about 1.67. The ratio of 13 to 8 is closer to 1.625. By the time you reach larger numbers, the value settles to approximately 1.618. This convergence is not a coincidence, but a deep mathematical property of the sequence. The golden ratio, often represented by the Greek letter phi, exists as an irrational number, meaning its decimal expansion continues forever without repeating. Yet this infinite, unending number arises directly from the simplest possible additive rule. The connection between Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio links arithmetic patterns to geometry and aesthetics in profound ways. This relationship has enchanted mathematicians for centuries. The discovery of this connection ranks among the most beautiful moments in mathematical history. The golden ratio is approximately 1.618. This numerical value has captivated mathematicians, artists, and scientists for millennia. The golden ratio is defined as the unique number where a line divided into two unequal parts has the whole length relating to the longer part exactly as the longer part relates to the shorter. Expressed numerically, this relationship produces approximately 1.6180339, and continues as an irrational number forever. The value appears in pentagons, decagons, and various regular geometric shapes. It surfaces in algebraic equations and trigonometric identities. While claims about its presence in art and architecture are sometimes overstated, the mathematical properties of this number remain genuinely remarkable. The golden ratio sits at the intersection of geometry, number theory, and aesthetics, making it one of the most celebrated constants in all of mathematics. Its decimal representation may trail off endlessly, but its significance to mathematical beauty remains finite and complete. Ancient civilizations noticed these proportions long before the mathematics was understood. Long before Fibonacci wrote his famous book, cultures around the world sensed something pleasing about certain proportions. The ancient Egyptians built structures with dimensions that approximate the golden ratio, though whether this was intentional remains debated. Greek philosophers and mathematicians studied proportion and harmony in geometry, art, and music. The Pythagoreans regarded certain ratios as sacred, believing they reflected cosmic order. In India, mathematical traditions explored additive sequences similar to Fibonacci's centuries before European scholarship caught up. These early observations were often intuitive rather than formal, rooted in aesthetic preference rather than rigorous proof. Yet they laid the groundwork for later mathematical investigation. The recurring appearance of these proportions across independent cultures suggests that humans are naturally drawn to patterns that mathematics would later explain. The ancient world glimpsed the beauty of these relationships long before anyone could articulate why they felt so right. Spirals appear throughout nature on vastly different scales. From the tiniest shells to the mightiest galaxies, spiral forms curve through the natural world with remarkable consistency. A snail shell fits in the palm of a hand, while a spiral galaxy stretches across hundreds of thousands of light years. Yet both display the same fundamental geometry, the graceful curve that expands outward while maintaining its shape. This pattern recurs in hurricanes, in water draining from a sink, in the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower head. The spiral seems to be one of nature's favorite designs, appearing wherever growth, flow, or rotation are involved. It offers efficiency and strength, allowing structures to expand without losing structural integrity. The ubiquity of spirals across such different scales and contexts suggests that certain mathematical relationships are woven into the very fabric of the universe. Each spiral, whether microscopic or cosmic, whispers the same quiet truth about the geometry of growth. Seashells often grow in logarithmic spirals related to Fibonacci. Many seashells display a distinctive spiraling form that expands outward as the animal inside grows. This type of curve is called a logarithmic or equiangular spiral because it maintains the same angle between the curve and lines radiating from the center. The golden spiral, closely related to Fibonacci numbers, is a special case of this geometry. As the mollusk adds new material to its shell, it follows a growth pattern that keeps proportions consistent no matter how large the shell becomes. The result is a structure that is both beautiful and mechanically efficient, distributing stress evenly along its curves. Shell growth does not always match Fibonacci numbers precisely, but the underlying mathematical principles are similar. These oceanic architects have been building spiral homes for hundreds of millions of years, long before humans recognized the elegance of the geometry they create. Each seashell is a small monument to nature's patient mathematical craftsmanship. The Nautilus shell is a famous example of natural spiral growth. The chambered Nautilus has become an icon of mathematical beauty in nature. Its shell consists of a series of increasingly larger chambers arranged in a graceful spiral. As the animal grows, it builds a new chamber and seals off the old one, maintaining buoyancy by adjusting gas and fluid in the empty spaces. The proportions of these chambers approximate a logarithmic spiral, and the overall shape is often compared to the golden spiral. While exact measurements show that Nautilus shells do not perfectly match Fibonacci geometry, the resemblance is close enough to inspire wonder. The Nautilus has existed for hundreds of millions of years, building its spiral home generation after generation. It has become a symbol of perfection in nature, gracing book covers, logos, and artwork. Whether or not it is a perfect golden spiral, the Nautilus shell remains one of the most elegant examples of mathematical form in the living world. Galaxies spin in spiral arms that echo mathematical principles. Some of the largest structures in the universe display the same spiraling geometry found in tiny seashells. Spiral galaxies like our own Milky Way contain billions of stars arrayed along curving arms that wrap around a central core. These arms are not solid structures, but patterns created by density waves moving through the galactic disk. The mathematics governing their shape shares fundamental properties with logarithmic spirals studied in relation to Fibonacci numbers. While the exact mechanisms differ from biological growth, the resulting forms are strikingly similar. Looking at images of distant spiral galaxies is like seeing the geometry of a seashell expanded to cosmic proportions. These galactic spirals have been spinning for billions of years, far longer than life has existed on Earth. The fact that such similar forms appear across scales spanning trillions of kilometers speaks to the universal nature of the mathematics underlying spiral geometry. Hurricanes form striking spiral patterns driven by atmospheric forces. When viewed from space, hurricanes display massive spiral arms curving outward from a central eye. These patterns emerge from the interaction of rotating winds, pressure gradients, and the Coriolis effect caused by Earth's rotation. The spiral structure allows the storm to efficiently channel energy from warm ocean water into its rotating mass. While hurricanes do not follow Fibonacci geometry precisely, the logarithmic spiral shapes in their cloud bands share mathematical properties with natural spirals found elsewhere. The spiral form appears to be an optimal configuration for distributing stress and energy across a rotating system. Each hurricane is a temporary sculpture carved by physics, existing for days or weeks before dissipating. These storms demonstrate that spiral geometry emerges not only in growth processes, but also in dynamic systems shaped by fluid motion. The beauty of a hurricane, seen from a safe distance, is a reminder that nature follows mathematical patterns even in its most powerful manifestations. Spiral growth allows structures to expand without changing shape. One of the most remarkable properties of logarithmic spirals is their self-similarity. As the spiral grows outward, each new section maintains the same proportions as the sections that came before. This means a spiral shell, for example, looks essentially the same whether small or large. For a growing organism, this is enormously practical. The creature does not need to redesign its home at each stage of development. It simply adds material following the same geometric rule it has always used. The spiral accommodates growth smoothly and continuously, without awkward transitions or structural weaknesses. This property also explains why spiral forms appear so often in nature. They represent solutions to the problem of growth that preserve function and form across different sizes. Self-similar expansion is an elegant answer to the challenge every growing organism faces. The spiral whispers a simple instruction: keep the angle constant and beauty will follow. The golden angle is approximately 137.5 degrees. While the golden ratio describes linear proportions, the golden angle translates that relationship into rotation. When a circle is divided according to the golden ratio, the smaller arc spans approximately 137.5 degrees. This angle appears throughout the botanical world, governing how plants arrange their leaves, seeds, and petals. When new growth emerges at this precise angle from the previous growth, the result is an arrangement that fills space with remarkable efficiency. The golden angle ensures that successive elements do not line up directly with earlier ones, preventing overlap and competition for resources. This seemingly arbitrary number is actually the signature of the golden ratio written in degrees. It connects the arithmetic properties of Fibonacci numbers to the geometry of circles and spirals. The golden angle is nature's quiet instruction manual for optimal arrangement, followed faithfully by countless species. Leaves often arrange themselves at the golden angle to maximize sunlight. Plants depend on light for photosynthesis, and every leaf is a solar collector competing for this vital resource. If leaves emerged directly above one another, upper leaves would shade lower ones, wasting potential energy capture. By spacing successive leaves at the golden angle, plants create a spiral staircase of foliage where each leaf receives maximum sunlight exposure. This arrangement also facilitates the flow of rainwater down the stem to the roots and allows air to circulate freely around the plant. The golden angle appears to be an evolutionary optimum that many plant lineages have converged upon independently. Different species may show slight variations, but the principle remains consistent. The spiral pattern visible when looking down at a plant from above reveals this mathematical organization. Each leaf knows its place in the spiral, positioned by genetic instructions refined over millions of years of natural selection. This leaf arrangement is called phyllotaxis. Botanists use the term phyllotaxis to describe the patterns in which leaves, petals, and other structures are arranged around stems. The word comes from Greek roots, meaning leaf arrangement, and it encompasses the fascinating geometry plants use to organize their growth. Spiral phyllotaxis is the most common pattern, where successive leaves emerge at consistent angular intervals, often the golden angle. Other patterns include whorled arrangements and opposite leaves, but spiral phyllotaxis appears across an enormous range of plant families. The study of phyllotaxis has attracted mathematicians and biologists alike, seeking to understand why plants follow these particular rules. Mathematical models can simulate phyllotaxis by applying simple growth rules, reproducing natural patterns with impressive accuracy. The term itself invites us to look more closely at the plants around us, to notice the hidden order in what might otherwise seem like random greenery. Phyllotaxis is nature's geometry made visible. Spiral phyllotaxis prevents leaves from shading one another. The primary advantage of spiral leaf arrangement becomes clear when sunlight is considered. Each leaf needs access to light, and leaves positioned directly above one another would create shadows that reduce photosynthetic efficiency. Spiral phyllotaxis distributes leaves so that each one occupies a unique angular position, minimizing overlap. When viewed from above, the gaps between leaves allow light to penetrate to lower levels of the plant. This arrangement represents an elegant solution to the problem of packing flat light collectors onto a vertical stem. The mathematics of the golden angle generates the maximum exposure with the minimum competition. Plants that evolved this pattern had an advantage in capturing energy, allowing them to grow faster and reproduce more successfully. The spiral staircase of leaves is not merely decorative. It is a survival strategy written in geometry. Natural selection has optimized this arrangement over countless generations. Sunflower heads display two sets of spirals curving in opposite directions. The sunflower has become one of the most celebrated examples of Fibonacci patterns in nature. Look closely at the center of a sunflower, where hundreds of tiny florets await pollination. You will notice that these florets form distinct spiral arms curving both clockwise and anti-clockwise. These intersecting spirals create the characteristic tiled pattern that fills the sunflower's face. The spirals emerge naturally from the way new florets develop at the golden angle from the previous ones. As they mature, they settle into positions that generate visible spiral paths curving in both directions. The pattern is not designed by any conscious plan, but arises inevitably from simple growth rules. Counting these spirals often reveals consecutive Fibonacci numbers, such as 34 spirals in one direction and 55 in the other. The sunflower stands as living proof that mathematical beauty can grow in a garden. The number of spirals in sunflowers often matches consecutive Fibonacci numbers. When botanists count the spiral arms in sunflower heads, they frequently find numbers from the Fibonacci sequence. Common pairings include 21 and 34, 34 and 55, or even 55 and 89 spirals curving in opposite directions. These consecutive Fibonacci numbers appear because of the golden angle governing floret placement. Each floret emerges at approximately 137.5 degrees from the previous one, filling space with maximum efficiency. The resulting pattern naturally generates spiral counts that reflect the underlying Fibonacci relationship. Not every sunflower is a perfect example. Natural variation means some individuals deviate from these numbers, but the tendency toward Fibonacci counts is strong enough to be statistically significant across large samples. The sunflower has become a botanical celebrity largely because of these remarkable numerical properties. It invites us to look closely and count, discovering mathematics hidden in plain sight. Pine cones show overlapping scales arranged in Fibonacci spirals. Pine cones offer another accessible example of Fibonacci geometry in nature. Each cone consists of overlapping scales arranged in intersecting spirals that curve around its central axis. Like sunflower heads, pine cones display spirals running both clockwise and anti-clockwise, and counting these spirals typically yields consecutive Fibonacci numbers. The scales protect the seeds within, and their overlapping arrangement provides excellent structural strength. The pattern emerges from the same growth principle found in flowers, where new scales develop at angles related to the golden ratio. Pine cones are common enough that anyone can collect a few and count the spirals for themselves. This hands-on encounter with Fibonacci numbers has introduced countless students to the idea that mathematics lives in the natural world. The humble pine cone, often overlooked on forest floors, carries within it a mathematical signature millions of years old. It quietly demonstrates that nature counts in Fibonacci. Seed packing in spirals maximizes the number that fit in a given space. For plants that produce many seeds in a limited area, efficient packing is essential. Spiral arrangements guided by the golden angle achieve remarkable packing density. Each seed finds a position that nestles efficiently between its neighbors, leaving minimal wasted space. The golden angle ensures that no two seeds line up along the same radial line, preventing the formation of empty channels or crowded clumps. This optimal distribution maximizes the number of seeds that can develop in a given flower head. Mathematical simulations have confirmed that the golden angle produces better packing than any other consistent angular spacing. Evolution has discovered this optimum through trial and error over millions of generations. Plants with more efficient seed packing produce more offspring, reinforcing the trait in the population. The spiral pattern of seeds is not merely beautiful. It is a strategy for reproductive success written in geometry. Pineapples display spiral patterns in their textured skin. The pineapple's distinctive outer surface is composed of small hexagonal segments arranged in interlocking spirals. These spirals curve around the fruit in both directions, and counting them typically reveals Fibonacci numbers. Common counts include 8, 13, and 21 spirals depending on the direction and the particular fruit. The pattern arises from the same developmental processes seen in flower heads and pine cones, where new segments emerge at golden angle intervals. Each hexagonal segment was once a flower on the original inflorescence, and their positions reflect the mathematical constraints of growth. The pineapple thus preserves, in its mature form, a record of its developmental geometry. This tropical fruit has become another favorite example for those seeking Fibonacci numbers in nature. Its textured surface invites close inspection and the satisfying act of counting spirals. The pineapple demonstrates that Fibonacci patterns are not limited to temperate climates, but appear in tropical species as well. Many flowers have petal counts that match Fibonacci numbers. When counting petals on a variety of flowers, certain numbers appear far more often than others. 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and 34 are particularly common petal counts across many plant families. These are all Fibonacci numbers, and their prevalence is not coincidental. Petal arrangements often emerge from spiral growth patterns governed by the golden angle. The number of petals reflects the underlying spiral organization of the flower bud as it develops. While not every flower conforms to Fibonacci numbers, the statistical tendency is strong enough to be striking. Exceptions exist, and some flowers have 4 or 6 petals that do not fit the sequence. Yet the overall pattern remains one of nature's more accessible mathematical demonstrations. Next time you encounter a flower, taking a moment to count its petals may reveal a connection to this ancient sequence. Nature seems to prefer certain numbers, and Fibonacci numbers appear among its favorites. Lilies typically have 3 petals. The lily family provides a simple example of Fibonacci petal counts. While what we casually call petals are botanically divided into petals and sepals, lilies commonly display structures arranged in groups of 3. This threefold symmetry appears across many monocot plants, the group that includes lilies, orchids, and grasses. 3 is the third Fibonacci number, excluding the initial zeros. The arrangement reflects the underlying developmental pattern of these flowers, where structures emerge in whorls governed by genetic instructions. The visual simplicity of a lily belies the mathematical consistency underlying its form. Across thousands of lily species, this 3-part plan remains remarkably stable. The number 3 carries deep significance in many cultures, and perhaps its frequent appearance in nature contributes to this symbolic importance. The elegant lily demonstrates that even the simplest Fibonacci numbers leave their mark on the floral world. From the white Madonna lily to the vibrant tiger lily, this threefold pattern persists across colors and continents. Buttercups usually have 5 petals. The familiar buttercup brightens meadows and roadsides with its glossy yellow flowers, each typically bearing 5 petals. 5 is a Fibonacci number, appearing as the sum of 2 and 3. This petal count is extremely common across the plant kingdom, found in roses, apples, and countless other species. The 5-petaled form represents one of nature's most stable floral designs, persisting across evolutionary time and geographic range. The buttercup's simple beauty has made it a childhood favorite, used for playful games testing fondness for butter. Yet beneath its simplicity lies the same mathematical relationship found in sunflowers and pine cones. The number 5 connects to the pentagon and the golden ratio through deep geometric relationships. Each buttercup petal is a small testament to the Fibonacci sequence's quiet presence in the flowering world. The simplest flowers carry ancient mathematical signatures. Children who hold buttercups under their chins unknowingly interact with patterns stretching back millions of years. Daisies often have 13, 21, or 34 petals. Daisies and their relatives in the daisy family tend toward higher Fibonacci petal counts than many other flowers. Counting the ray florets that form what we perceive as petals often yields 13, 21, or 34. These numbers correspond to consecutive Fibonacci values, reflecting the spiral organization of the flower head. The daisy family is enormously successful, including sunflowers, asters, and chrysanthemums, and many members exhibit Fibonacci patterns. Variation exists, and not every daisy will match these numbers precisely. Growing conditions, genetics, and chance all introduce variability, yet the central tendency toward Fibonacci counts remains statistically robust. Researchers have counted thousands of daisies and documented the prevalence of these specific numbers. The humble daisy, common in gardens and fields alike, offers an accessible window into Fibonacci's quiet influence on the flowering world. Anyone with patience can count daisy petals and participate in this mathematical observation. The daisy makes Fibonacci patterns accessible to curious minds of all ages. Petal arrangements help attract pollinators efficiently. The arrangement of petals around a flower serves multiple functions beyond mere aesthetics. Petals advertise the flower's presence to pollinators, while their arrangement guides visiting insects toward the reproductive structures at the center. Efficient petal arrangements may improve the flower's visibility and accessibility to bees, butterflies, and other pollinators. The symmetry and proportion associated with Fibonacci numbers may contribute to making flowers more attractive or recognizable to their pollinators. Consistent petal arrangements also create predictable landing platforms for insects. While the primary evolutionary pressure on petal form relates to reproductive success, the mathematical patterns in petal counts may be side effects of efficient developmental processes. The geometry that maximizes growth efficiency may also happen to produce forms that pollinators find attractive. Whatever the precise causal chain, the result is a world of flowers that blend mathematical beauty with biological function. Fibonacci petal counts may improve structural stability in flowers. Beyond attracting pollinators, petal arrangements must also provide mechanical support during the flower's lifespan. Petals need to withstand wind, rain, and the weight of visiting insects without collapsing or tearing. Arrangements based on Fibonacci numbers and the golden angle distribute stress evenly around the flower's center, providing inherent structural stability. This geometric advantage may help explain why Fibonacci petal counts have persisted across evolutionary time. Flowers with less stable configurations would be more prone to damage, reducing their reproductive success. The interplay between aesthetics, pollinator attraction, and structural engineering makes flower design a fascinating example of biological optimization. Nature has experimented with countless configurations over millions of years, and Fibonacci-related patterns have proven particularly robust. The petals we admire in our gardens are engineered structures, shaped by selection to balance beauty and strength. Rose petals spiral outward from the center, following natural curves. The rose has captivated human attention for millennia, prized for its fragrance, beauty, and symbolic significance. Examining a rose closely reveals that its petals spiral outward from a tight central bud, each layer offset from the one below. This arrangement follows patterns related to the golden angle, creating the distinctive layered appearance of the bloom. Wild roses typically have 5 petals, a clear Fibonacci number. Cultivated varieties have been bred for fullness, with many more petals spiraling around the center. Even in these elaborate cultivars, the underlying spiral geometry persists. The rose blends Fibonacci mathematics with human selection to produce one of nature's most celebrated flowers. Its spiraling petals have inspired poets and artists, though few may recognize the mathematics hidden within. Each rose carries, in its layered beauty, echoes of the same patterns found in sunflowers and seashells. Artichokes display layered bracts arranged in Fibonacci spirals. The globe artichoke, prized as a culinary delicacy, reveals Fibonacci geometry in its layered structure. The edible portion consists of overlapping bracts arranged in spirals around a central heart. Counting these spirals often yields consecutive Fibonacci numbers, just as in sunflowers and pine cones. The artichoke is actually an immature flower head, and if allowed to bloom, it would produce a spectacular purple thistle-like flower. The spiral arrangement of the bracts efficiently protects the developing flower and provides structural strength. The artichoke demonstrates that Fibonacci patterns appear not only in ornamental plants, but also in those we cultivate for food. Its tight spiral packing is both visually appealing and functionally effective. Peeling away the layers of an artichoke to reach its tender heart is like unwinding a mathematical spiral created by nature's patient geometry. Romanesco broccoli shows a striking fractal spiral pattern. Romanesco broccoli stands as one of the most visually dramatic examples of Fibonacci geometry in the edible plant world. Its surface is covered with conical florets arranged in logarithmic spirals that repeat at ever smaller scales. This self-similar pattern makes Romanesco a natural fractal, where each small part resembles the whole. The florets spiral around the central axis, and counting them reveals Fibonacci numbers. The overall form is so mathematically precise that it looks almost artificial, yet it grows naturally in gardens and farms. Romanesco demonstrates that nature can produce fractals as elaborate as any computer simulation. Its unusual appearance has made it a favorite subject for photographs and mathematics lessons alike. Eating Romanesco is an opportunity to consume mathematical beauty, one spiraling bite at a time. The vegetable is living proof that the golden ratio can taste as good as it looks. Tree branches often divide in patterns related to Fibonacci numbers. The branching structure of trees reveals another expression of Fibonacci mathematics in nature. As a trunk rises and divides, the pattern of branching often follows predictable relationships. A single trunk becomes 2 branches, which may become 3, then 5, then 8, following the Fibonacci sequence. This progressive branching is not always exact, as environmental factors influence individual trees. Yet the tendency toward Fibonacci-related patterns is observable across many species. The branching pattern that maximizes light capture and structural stability often converges on these numbers. Each branch serves as a supporting structure for leaves and as a pathway for water and nutrients. Efficient branching is crucial for tree survival, and Fibonacci geometry appears to offer advantages in this regard. Looking up into the canopy of a mature tree, one may glimpse the mathematical skeleton underlying its leafy crown. Branching spirals help distribute mechanical stress evenly. Trees and other plants must withstand wind, rain, snow, and the weight of their own growth. The branching patterns they develop distribute these mechanical stresses throughout the structure, preventing any single point from bearing excessive load. Spiral arrangements and Fibonacci-related branching contribute to this stress distribution. When branches emerge at angles related to the golden ratio, forces are channeled downward toward the trunk and roots efficiently. This engineering is not conscious, but emerges from millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Trees with poor stress distribution were more likely to break or topple, leaving fewer offspring. Those with better geometries survived and reproduced, passing on their structural advantages. The result is the graceful architecture we see in mature trees, where every branch has found its optimal position through the patient trial of natural selection. Spiral branching optimizes the flow of water and nutrients. Beyond mechanical strength, trees need efficient internal plumbing to transport water from roots to leaves and sugars from leaves to the rest of the plant. The arrangement of branches influences how smoothly this transport occurs. Spiral branching patterns may reduce turbulence and resistance in the vascular system, allowing resources to flow more efficiently. The angle at which branches depart from a stem affects the physics of fluid flow through the narrow vessels within. Fibonacci-related angles appear to provide good hydraulic performance in addition to structural advantages. This dual optimization may explain why similar branching patterns appear across distantly related plant families. Natural selection favors designs that solve multiple problems simultaneously. The elegant branching of a tree represents a solution to both mechanical and hydraulic engineering challenges, arrived at through countless generations of experimentation. Plant roots sometimes grow in spirals through the soil. While we typically think of Fibonacci patterns in the visible parts of plants, similar principles apply underground. Root tips have been observed growing in helical or spiraling paths as they navigate through soil. This spiraling growth may help roots probe the soil more thoroughly, increasing their chances of encountering water and nutrients. The spiral path allows a root to explore a wider volume of soil than a straight trajectory would permit. Root growth is influenced by gravity, moisture gradients, and the physical structure of the soil, but underlying spiral tendencies have been documented in laboratory studies. The mathematics of growth operates in the darkness beneath our feet, just as it does in sunlight above. Roots are the hidden anchors of plants, and their spiral explorations play a crucial role in gathering the resources needed for survival. Spiral root growth helps plants navigate obstacles underground. The soil is not a uniform medium, but a complex environment filled with rocks, other roots, buried debris, and varying densities. Spiral growth patterns help root tips navigate around obstacles rather than stopping when they encounter resistance. By continuously redirecting their growth direction, spiraling roots can work around impediments and continue elongating. This flexibility increases the root system's ability to anchor the plant and access water, even in challenging soils. The spiral tendency is a kind of exploratory algorithm encoded in the root's growth mechanisms. It allows the plant to adapt to conditions it cannot sense until contact is made. The underground world of roots is dynamic and responsive, even if hidden from our view. Spiral navigation is one of many strategies plants use to succeed in the unpredictable environment beneath the surface. Vines curl around supports in helical spirals. Climbing vines display one of nature's most familiar spiral behaviors. Tendrils and stems wrap around supports in helical coils, allowing the plant to rise towards sunlight without the structural investment required for a self-supporting trunk. This coiling behavior involves rapid cell growth on one side of the tendril, causing it to curve and eventually form a spiral. The resulting helix is both flexible and strong, able to stretch and recoil as the support sways in the wind. Some vines coil clockwise while others coil anti-clockwise, and this handedness is genetically determined. The helix is mechanically efficient, distributing stress along its length rather than concentrating it at any single point. Climbing plants demonstrate that spiral geometry solves structural problems for organisms with very different lifestyles than trees or shells. The vine's spiral embrace is a strategy for reaching the light with minimal material investment. The spiral form maximizes strength while minimizing material. Engineers recognize spirals and helices as structurally efficient forms that provide strength with economy of material. A spiral shell, for example, is remarkably strong for its weight, resisting crushing forces through its curved geometry. Helical springs store and release energy efficiently, and DNA coils into a double helix to pack long molecules into compact spaces. Plants and animals that employ spiral structures benefit from these inherent advantages. Using less material for the same strength reduces the metabolic cost of growth, freeing resources for reproduction. The widespread appearance of spirals in nature reflects this fundamental efficiency. Natural selection favors designs that achieve function with minimal expense, and spirals consistently meet this criterion. The mathematics of the spiral encodes a universal principle of efficiency that transcends any particular species or context. Fibonacci patterns appear in the reproductive structures of ferns. Ferns are among the most ancient land plants, and their reproductive structures show evidence of Fibonacci-related geometry. The fronds of many ferns unfurl in graceful spirals called fiddleheads, named for their resemblance to the scroll of a violin. The arrangement of spore-producing structures on the underside of fronds also follows regular patterns. Studies have documented Fibonacci relationships in the organization of these structures across various fern species. The persistence of such patterns in lineages that diverged from flowering plants hundreds of millions of years ago suggests that Fibonacci geometry has deep roots in the plant kingdom. Ferns remind us that the mathematical principles underlying plant form are ancient, predating flowers and seeds. The quiet spirals of fiddleheads connect modern gardens to the primeval forests where ferns first flourished. Algae and simple organisms sometimes divide following Fibonacci timing. Even among single-celled organisms and simple multicellular life, Fibonacci-related patterns have been observed. Some species of algae divide in rhythms that reflect Fibonacci intervals, producing numbers of cells that occasionally match the sequence. The mechanisms behind this remain an area of active research, but the observations suggest that Fibonacci-like patterns can emerge from basic growth and division rules. In a world governed by exponential replication, Fibonacci numbers appear when the timing of reproduction follows particular constraints. The appearance of these numbers among the simplest organisms hints that the sequence captures something fundamental about growth itself. Life on Earth may have been playing with Fibonacci mathematics since long before complex plants or animals evolved. The pattern is woven into biology at multiple levels, from the humblest algae to the most elaborate flowers. Cell division rates can reflect Fibonacci-related rhythms. The rate at which cells divide is a fundamental parameter of growth. Under certain conditions, the intervals between cell divisions can produce populations whose sizes follow Fibonacci numbers. This occurs when successive generations of cells overlap and contribute to reproduction before earlier generations have completed their cycles. The result is an additive pattern where each population count equals the sum of the two preceding counts. This is precisely the rule defining the Fibonacci sequence. While not all organisms divide in this manner, those that do provide a living demonstration of the sequence. The connection between cell division timing and Fibonacci numbers underscores how deeply the sequence is embedded in growth processes. From microscopic cells to the arrangement of leaves on a stem, the same additive logic leaves its mark. The mathematics of growth operates at scales invisible to the naked eye, but detectable through careful counting and observation. Embryonic development sometimes follows patterns linked to these numbers. The early stages of embryonic development involve rapid cell division and organization. Researchers have observed that certain developmental timings and structural arrangements show connections to Fibonacci numbers or related patterns. As cells divide and differentiate, they must organize into tissues and organs with specific shapes and proportions. The golden ratio and Fibonacci geometry appear in some anatomical structures that emerge during development. While embryos do not consciously count or follow mathematical rules, the underlying processes of growth and division can naturally generate these patterns. Development is guided by genes, chemical gradients, and physical forces, all of which interact in complex ways. When these interactions produce Fibonacci-like outcomes, it suggests that the mathematics of the sequence aligns with fundamental principles of biological organization. The embryo develops according to ancient instructions, and some of those instructions echo the Fibonacci sequence. Snail shells curve in self-similar spirals as the animal grows. The snail shell is a classic example of logarithmic spiral growth in the animal kingdom. As the snail matures, it adds new material to the opening of its shell, and this material follows the curve established by earlier growth. The result is a spiral that maintains the same proportions regardless of the shell's size. This self-similarity means that a small snail shell and a large one have the same shape, differing only in scale. The spiral form provides protection and a mobile home that the snail carries throughout its life. The geometry of the shell reflects the snail's growth rate and the physical constraints of adding material to a curved structure. Many snail species produce shells that approximate the golden spiral, though variations exist. Each shell is a portable sculpture created by patient accretion over the animal's lifetime. The shell maintains its proportions throughout the snail's life. One of the most elegant features of snail shell growth is the preservation of shape across sizes. A young snail's shell is a miniature version of the adult's, with the same proportions and spiral form. This consistency arises because the growth rule remains constant. Each increment of new shell follows the same geometric relationship to the existing structure. The snail does not need to remodel its home as it grows, it simply extends it. This efficiency is possible because logarithmic spirals have this unique self-similar property. The constancy of form provides consistent protection and mobility at all life stages. The snail carries the record of its entire growth history within its shell, each whorl a chapter from an earlier time. The mathematics of the spiral ensures that past and present connect seamlessly. Ram horns curl in spirals that distribute stress during combat. The magnificent spiraling horns of rams serve both as weapons and as displays of fitness. During headbutting contests, enormous forces are generated as males collide. The spiral form of the horns helps distribute these forces along the curve rather than concentrating them at a single point. This reduces the risk of fracture and protects the animal's skull. The spiral shape grows from a base near the skull, curving outward and back as new horn material is added. The geometry emerges from consistent growth patterns maintained over the animal's lifetime. Spiral horns have evolved independently in various species, suggesting that this form offers genuine biomechanical advantages. The ram's horn is an example of Fibonacci-related geometry applied to the challenges of competition and survival. The sound of rams clashing echoes across mountain valleys, their spiral horns absorbing impacts that would shatter straighter structures. The horns of certain antelopes follow similar curved growth. Beyond rams, many species of antelopes and other bovids display horns that curve in spirals. The kudu, with its elegantly twisting horns, is a particularly striking example. These spirals serve similar functions to ram's horns, providing structural strength and serving as visual signals of health and genetic quality. The spiral growth pattern emerges from asymmetric addition of horn material at the base, with one side growing faster than the other. Over time, this differential growth produces the characteristic twist. The precise geometry varies among species, reflecting different evolutionary histories and selective pressures. Yet the underlying principle of spiral growth remains consistent. These horns connect antelopes roaming African savannas to the same mathematical relationships found in shells and flowers around the world. The graceful curves of antelope horns have inspired artistic representations for thousands of years across many cultures. Claws and talons often curve in spirals related to Fibonacci geometry. The claws of cats, the talons of eagles, and the nails of many mammals display curved forms that approximate logarithmic spirals. These structures grow from a root at the base, with new material pushing older material outward. The curve results from differential growth rates on the upper and lower surfaces of the claw. A sharp, curved claw is an effective tool for grasping prey, climbing, or defense. The spiral form provides both strength and sharpness, concentrating force at the tip, while the broader base provides support. This geometry has evolved independently in many lineages, from reptiles to mammals to birds. The mathematics underlying claw shape connects hunters across the animal kingdom to the same principles governing seashells and galaxy arms. Every predator that catches prey with curved talons relies on spiral geometry refined through millions of years of evolution. Elephant tusks grow in gentle spirals over many years. Elephant tusks are elongated incisor teeth that continue growing throughout the animal's life. Over decades of growth, tusks often develop gentle spiral curves, reflecting the physics of continuous deposition at the base. The curve accumulates slowly, with each year adding a small increment to the overall form. Variations in diet, health, and environment can influence the precise trajectory, but the tendency towards spiral curvature is common. Tusks serve multiple functions, from digging for roots to displays of dominance. The spiral form distributes stress along its length when tusks are used for pushing or lifting. An elephant's tusks record its history, carrying within them the mineral signatures of the waters and soils encountered over a lifetime. The gentle spiral connects these iconic mammals to the mathematics of growth. Some tusks curve so dramatically that they nearly touch each other, creating striking profiles. Spider webs often incorporate spiral threads for strength and flexibility. Orb-weaving spiders construct intricate webs, combining radial threads with a spiral overlay. The radial threads provide structural framework, anchoring the web to surrounding supports. The spiral thread cinches these radials together and creates the sticky trapping surface. This combination produces a structure that is remarkably strong relative to its weight. The spiral provides flexibility, allowing the web to absorb the impact of flying prey without breaking. It also distributes stress evenly, preventing any single thread from bearing excessive load. The geometry of the orb web has evolved over millions of years, refining the balance of radial and spiral elements. Spider silk itself is one of the strongest natural materials known, and its arrangement in spirals maximizes its effectiveness. The web is a masterpiece of biological engineering, quietly demonstrating spiral efficiency. The orb web combines radial and spiral elements efficiently. The architecture of an orb web is a study in efficient design. Radial threads extend outward from a central hub like spokes on a wheel, providing the main structural support. The spiral thread connects these radials, creating a two-dimensional net capable of intercepting flying insects. The number of radials and the spacing of the spiral are not random, but reflect optimization under the constraints of material availability and prey capture efficiency. Some studies have noted connections between web geometry and Fibonacci numbers, though the relationship is not always exact. What is clear is that the spiral contributes crucially to the web's ability to absorb energy and trap prey. Spiders have refined this design over hundreds of millions of years. The orb web stands as a testament to the power of evolutionary experimentation to arrive at efficient geometric solutions. Honeycomb cells are hexagonal, but hive structures show spiral influences. The honeycomb is famous for its hexagonal cells, which provide maximum storage volume with minimal wax usage. While the individual cells are not spirals, the overall organization of the hive can display curved and spiraling patterns. Bees build comb in sheets that may curve to fit the cavity they occupy, and the growth of the hive over time follows its own geometry. Additionally, the dance language bees use to communicate food sources involves figure-8 patterns that incorporate spiral movements. The connection between bee behavior and Fibonacci geometry is looser than in some other systems, but bees remind us that hexagons and spirals can coexist in nature's designs. The hive is a cooperative construction project where individual actions aggregate into large-scale structure. Bee geometry reflects both the physics of wax and the social dynamics of the colony. DNA spirals in a double helix with precise proportions. The molecule that carries the genetic information of all known life forms is itself a spiral. DNA consists of two strands wound around each other in a double helix, the iconic twisted ladder that has become a symbol of biology itself. The dimensions of the helix, the spacing between base pairs, and the pitch of the turns follow precise proportions determined by the chemistry of the nucleotides. While DNA's geometry is primarily dictated by molecular forces rather than Fibonacci mathematics, some researchers have noted numerical relationships between the helix dimensions and the golden ratio. Whether or not these connections are fundamental, the spiral form of DNA is essential to its function. The helix allows the long molecule to coil compactly within cells while remaining accessible for replication and transcription. DNA demonstrates that spiral geometry operates at the molecular level, where life's instructions are encoded. The proportions of the human body approximate the golden ratio. For centuries, artists and scientists have noted that certain proportions of the human body approach the golden ratio. The ratio of total height to the height of the navel, for example, is often close to 1.618. Similar ratios appear between the lengths of finger bones, between forearm and hand, and in facial proportions. These observations have inspired claims that the human body embodies mathematical perfection. The reality is more nuanced. Actual measurements show considerable variation among individuals, yet the tendency toward golden ratio proportions is notable enough to have influenced artistic depictions of ideal human form. Whether the golden ratio is truly embedded in our anatomy or merely reflects our perceptual preferences remains a matter of ongoing discussion. What is clear is that humans have long sought mathematical order in their own bodies. The human ear curves in a shape resembling a Fibonacci spiral. The outer ear, or pinna, has a distinctive curved shape that approximates a logarithmic spiral. From the outer rim curving inward toward the ear canal, the lines of the ear follow paths that resemble the golden spiral. This shape helps funnel sound waves toward the eardrum efficiently, with the curves directing and focusing acoustic energy. The spiral geometry may also help us locate sounds in three-dimensional space by creating frequency-dependent reflections. The ear's development in the embryo involves complex folding processes that produce its final form. While the ear's shape is not a perfect Fibonacci spiral, the resemblance is close enough to inspire comparisons. The curve of the ear connects human anatomy to the same mathematical family found in shells and galaxies. Every time we listen, we do so through a spiral shaped by millions of years of evolution. Fingers and limbs relate to one another in proportions close to the golden ratio. Examining the bones of the human hand reveals ratios between successive segments that approximate the golden ratio. The tip bone relates to the middle bone roughly as the middle bone relates to the base bone. Similar proportions appear in the relationship between hand and forearm, and between forearm and upper arm. This cascade of related proportions echoes the Fibonacci sequence's property, where each term relates to its neighbors consistently. The approximation is not exact, and individuals vary considerably. Yet the tendency toward these proportions has fascinated anatomists and artists for centuries. Leonardo da Vinci and other Renaissance thinkers measured these ratios carefully, seeking underlying order in human form. Whether the golden ratio is a design principle or an emergent property of growth remains debated. Either way, our own limbs carry echoes of the mathematics we find in nature. Facial proportions considered attractive often approach golden ratio values. Studies of facial attractiveness have found that faces judged more attractive tend to have proportions that approach the golden ratio. The ratio of face width to face length, the placement of eyes relative to the mouth, and other measurements often cluster near 1.618 in faces rated highly attractive. This has led to speculation that the golden ratio represents an innate aesthetic ideal hardwired into human perception. However, the evidence is complex, and attractiveness is influenced by many factors beyond simple proportions. Cultural differences, personal preferences, and other features like symmetry all play roles. Some researchers argue that golden ratio claims are overstated, while others find consistent effects. What remains intriguing is that humans appear to have some sensitivity to these proportions, even if the relationship is not absolute. The cochlea of the inner ear spirals to detect sound frequencies. Deep within the ear lies the cochlea, a snail-shaped structure filled with fluid and lined with tiny hair cells. The cochlea spirals approximately 2.5 turns around a central axis, creating a coiled tube that detects sound vibrations. Different frequencies cause maximum vibration at different points along the spiral, allowing the brain to distinguish pitches. The spiral form packs a long sensing surface into a compact space, fitting efficiently within the skull. The cochlea's shape is determined by developmental processes that fold the inner ear into its characteristic coil. While the cochlea's spiral is not precisely a Fibonacci spiral, the resemblance has been noted by anatomists. The ear that hears music and speech relies on a spiral structure hidden inside the head. Our perception of sound is mediated by this elegant, coiled architecture. Heartbeats and breathing can exhibit rhythmic patterns linked to Fibonacci timing. The rhythms of the body, including heartbeat and respiration, display complex patterns that some researchers have linked to Fibonacci-related timing. Heart rate variability, the subtle fluctuations between successive beats, shows patterns that can be analyzed mathematically. Under certain conditions, these patterns reveal scaling relationships reminiscent of Fibonacci sequences or the golden ratio. Similarly, the rhythm of breathing interacts with heart rate in ways that reflect underlying physiological organization. While these connections are more abstract than the visible spirals in shells or flowers, they suggest that Fibonacci mathematics may influence biological timing as well as spatial form. The body's internal rhythms are governed by feedback loops and oscillators that may naturally generate Fibonacci-like patterns. Listening to your own heartbeat may be an encounter with the same mathematics found in sunflowers. Fingerprints form spiral and loop patterns unique to each person. The ridges on human fingertips create distinctive patterns of loops, whorls, and arches. Whorls spiral inward or outward, creating circular patterns centered on each finger pad. These patterns form during fetal development and remain unchanged throughout life. No two individuals share identical fingerprints, making them useful for identification. The spiral whorls found in many fingerprints echo the same geometry seen elsewhere in nature, though their formation is governed by different underlying processes. Fingerprint patterns result from stresses and growth rates in the skin during embryonic development. The resulting spirals are unique signatures of individual developmental history. Every time we touch something, we leave behind a trace of our own personal spiral. Fingerprints connect the mathematics of spirals to the intimacy of individual identity. Hair whorls on the scalp often spiral clockwise or anti-clockwise. If you have ever noticed a spiral pattern in someone's hair, you have observed a hair whorl. Most people have at least one whorl on their scalp, a point where hair growth radiates outward in a spiral pattern. The majority of people have clockwise whorls, though anti-clockwise whorls are also common. The direction and position of hair walls are determined during fetal development and influenced by genetic factors. Studies have even explored whether hair wall direction correlates with other traits, though results are mixed. The spiral pattern arises from the arrangement of hair follicles in the skin. Each wall is a small reminder that spiral geometry is written into our own bodies. The hair on your head carries the signature of the mathematics of growth. Parents often notice these walls when brushing their children's hair, small spirals that make each head unique. The umbilical cord twists in a helical spiral. The umbilical cord, connecting a developing fetus to the placenta, coils in a helical spiral throughout pregnancy. Most cords twist in a left-handed helix, though right-handed spirals also occur. The coiling develops naturally as the cord grows and the fetus moves within the uterus. The spiral provides flexibility and reduces the risk of kinking or compression that could restrict blood flow. A straight cord would be more vulnerable to obstruction, so the helical form is functionally advantageous. The degree of coiling varies among individuals and can have clinical significance in some cases. The umbilical cord is the earliest spiral we encounter, forming before birth as the first physical connection to another life. Its helical form carries nutrients and oxygen along a curve shaped by the same geometry found throughout the natural world. This vital spiral supports new life from conception until birth. Muscles and tendons wrap around bones in spiral arrangements. The musculoskeletal system of the human body displays spiral arrangements in how muscles and tendons attach to and wrap around bones. This spiraling creates efficient force transmission, allowing rotation and multidirectional movement. The spiral orientation of muscle fibers contributes to the ringing action of the heart and the rotational capabilities of the limbs. This organization distributes stress and reduces the concentration of forces at any single attachment point. The spiral muscle architecture may be one reason why human movement is so fluid and capable of complex coordination. Similar patterns appear in other vertebrates, suggesting an evolutionarily conserved design principle. The body moves because spirals contract and relax in coordinated sequences. The geometry of motion is written in the spiral wrapping of soft tissue around hard bone. Blood vessels branch in patterns that approximate Fibonacci geometry. The circulatory system delivers blood throughout the body via a network of branching vessels. Arteries divide into smaller arterioles, which further divide into capillaries before reconverging into veins. The angles and proportions of these branches have been studied for connections to Fibonacci relationships. Efficient blood flow requires minimizing resistance while reaching all tissues. Mathematical models suggest that certain branching angles optimize flow, and these optima often approach values related to the golden ratio. The actual vascular system shows variability, but the tendency toward efficient geometry is evident. Each branch point represents a solution to the physics of fluid transport through biological tubes. The red rivers within us flow through channels shaped by the same principles governing tree branches and river deltas. The arrangement of teeth in the human jaw follows curved arcs. Human teeth are arranged along curved dental arches in the upper and lower jaws. These arches approximate parabolic or related mathematical curves that distribute biting forces efficiently. The proportions of teeth and the shape of the arch have been compared to golden ratio relationships by some researchers. Orthodontists study dental proportions carefully when designing treatments to improve bite alignment. While the connection to Fibonacci is not always exact, the underlying theme of efficient geometric organization applies. The arch form allows teeth to work together during chewing, spreading force across many contact points. The mouth we use to eat and speak is shaped by the same kinds of optimization processes seen throughout biology. Dental anatomy offers another window into nature's mathematical tendencies. Ancient Greek architects incorporated golden ratio proportions. The ancient Greeks are often credited with discovering and applying the golden ratio in their architecture. Greek temples and monuments display proportions that approximate 1.618 in their height-to-width relationships and in the spacing of columns. The Greeks valued harmony and balance in design, and mathematical relationships were seen as expressions of cosmic order. While it is difficult to know with certainty which proportions were intentional, the consistency of golden ratio approximations across Greek architecture is notable. The Parthenon, the Temple of Apollo at Didyma, and other structures have been analyzed for golden ratio geometry. Whether these proportions were consciously calculated or arose from intuitive aesthetic sense remains debated. What is clear is that the Greeks established a tradition of linking mathematics to beauty that influences architecture to this day. The Parthenon is often cited as an example of golden ratio design. The Parthenon in Athens has become the most famous example invoked in discussions of the golden ratio in architecture. The ratio of the building's width to its height and the proportions of various design elements have been measured and compared to 1.618. Some analyses find striking correspondences, while others argue the matches are coincidental or depend on how measurements are taken. The building was designed to embody ideals of proportion and balance, and its enduring beauty testifies to the success of its design. Whether or not the golden ratio was explicitly employed, the Parthenon stands as a monument to human interest in harmonious proportion. Its influence has extended across millennia, inspiring architects and artists who seek similar ideals. The Parthenon invites us to consider the relationship between mathematics and aesthetic experience. Visitors to Athens still gather to admire a building whose proportions have fascinated observers for over 2,000 years. Egyptian pyramids may reflect proportions close to the golden ratio. The Great Pyramid of Giza has prompted speculation about golden ratio geometry since ancient times. The ratio of the pyramid's slant height to half its base length approximates the golden ratio, leading some to suggest the builders intentionally incorporated this proportion. Others argue that the observed ratios are coincidental or result from practical construction choices. The Egyptians were skilled mathematicians, but there is no surviving documentation of golden ratio awareness in their building records. The debate continues among historians and mathematicians. What is certain is that the pyramids embody remarkable precision and an aesthetic power that has endured for thousands of years. Whether or not the golden ratio was intentional, the pyramids demonstrate the human drive to create structures of lasting beauty and mathematical elegance. Renaissance artists studied human proportions through a mathematical lens. The Renaissance brought renewed interest in classical ideals of proportion and harmony. Artists and scholars studied the human body as a subject of mathematical inquiry, measuring and documenting its ratios. The golden ratio featured prominently in these investigations, seen as a key to understanding ideal beauty. Renaissance workshops produced treatises linking anatomy to geometry, influencing how artists depicted the human form. This period established the idea that mathematical knowledge could improve artistic practice. The connection between art and mathematics that seems obvious today was actively cultivated during the Renaissance. Artists sought to unite aesthetic intuition with rigorous measurement. The legacy of this period continues in contemporary discussions of proportion in art and design. Renaissance masters believed that understanding the mathematics of beauty would elevate their craft to new heights. Leonardo da Vinci explored the golden ratio in his anatomical drawings. Leonardo da Vinci was deeply interested in the mathematics of human form. His notebooks are filled with measurements and calculations, exploring bodily proportions. Leonardo collaborated with mathematician Luca Pacioli, whose book on divine proportions celebrated the golden ratio. Leonardo's illustrations for this work included geometric constructions related to the golden ratio. His anatomical studies sought to reveal the underlying geometry of muscles, bones, and organs. While not every Leonardo drawing embodies the golden ratio, his work reflects sustained engagement with mathematical proportion. Leonardo believed that understanding these ratios was essential to creating convincing and beautiful art. His legacy influences both artistic practice and scientific illustration to the present day. The master's curiosity about proportion remains an inspiration to artists and scientists alike. The Vitruvian Man illustrates ideal human proportions. Leonardo's Vitruvian Man is perhaps the most famous image linking human anatomy to geometry. The drawing shows a man inscribed within both a circle and a square, demonstrating how the human body relates to these fundamental shapes. The proportions depicted reflect ideas from the Roman architect Vitruvius, who wrote about the ideal dimensions of the human form. The image encapsulates Renaissance ideals of harmony between human and universal geometry. While the Vitruvian Man does not explicitly invoke the golden ratio, it embodies the spirit of mathematical proportion that also underlies Fibonacci studies. The drawing has become an icon of human potential and the quest for understanding through measurement. It reminds us that the human body has long been seen as a subject worthy of mathematical contemplation. Reproductions of the Vitruvian Man appear in museums, textbooks, and cultural references around the world. Painters have used the golden ratio to compose balanced images. Throughout art history, painters have employed the golden ratio as a compositional tool, placing key elements of a painting along lines that divide the canvas according to the golden ratio can create a sense of balance and visual interest. Major focal points might fall at intersections of these lines, drawing the viewer's eye naturally across the image. Renaissance and later painters sometimes constructed elaborate geometric underpinnings for their compositions. While not every successful painting follows golden ratio principles, the technique has proven durable. Modern analyses have found golden ratio relationships in works by Leonardo, Raphael, and many others. Whether artists consciously calculated or intuitively sensed these proportions, the result is often compositions that feel harmonious. The golden ratio offers painters a framework for organizing visual complexity. The rule of thirds in photography echoes golden ratio principles. Photographers commonly use the rule of thirds to compose visually appealing images. This guideline divides the frame into 9 equal sections with 2 horizontal and 2 vertical lines, placing important elements along these lines or at their intersections. The rule of thirds is a simplification of golden ratio composition, offering a more accessible approach that produces similar effects. While the exact proportions differ slightly, both techniques work by avoiding placing subjects dead center, creating dynamic tension and visual interest. The rule of thirds is often taught to beginners as a first step toward understanding compositional balance. More advanced photographers may refine their compositions using precise golden ratio grids. Both approaches reflect the underlying human preference for certain proportional relationships. Photography thus continues the tradition of mathematical composition in the visual arts. Millions of photographs taken each day unconsciously follow these ancient mathematical principles. Modern architects continue to draw inspiration from natural proportions. Contemporary architecture often references natural forms and mathematical proportions. Some architects explicitly incorporate the golden ratio into their designs, citing its appearance in nature as justification for its aesthetic appeal. Buildings with facades, floor plans, or structural elements proportioned according to 1.618 can be found around the world. This approach connects modern design to ancient traditions of mathematical beauty. Other architects draw more loosely on natural proportions, using organic curves and branching forms that evoke Fibonacci geometry without strict adherence. The result is architecture that feels harmonious with the natural environment. Whether conscious or intuitive, the use of natural proportions helps create spaces that feel comfortable and pleasing. Modern architecture carries forward the millennia-old conversation between mathematics and design. Sustainable architecture increasingly draws on these natural patterns for both aesthetic and functional reasons. Logo designers sometimes incorporate golden ratio geometry. Corporate and brand identity designers have embraced the golden ratio as a tool for creating memorable logos. Proportioning elements of a logo according to golden ratio relationships can produce designs that feel balanced and visually satisfying. Famous logos for technology and design companies have been analyzed for golden ratio geometry, and some designers explicitly construct their work using Fibonacci-related measurements. Whether the golden ratio actually improves logo effectiveness is debated, but the technique has become fashionable in design circles. The appeal may lie in the idea that mathematical rigor produces more polished results. Regardless of whether viewers consciously perceive these proportions, the practice reflects enduring fascination with the golden ratio. Logo design is one more field where Fibonacci's legacy quietly influences creative work. Design studios around the world employ these mathematical principles daily. Musical compositions have been structured around Fibonacci intervals. Some composers have deliberately structured their music using Fibonacci numbers. The placement of climaxes, changes in texture, or the introduction of new themes might occur at bar numbers or time intervals that correspond to Fibonacci values. This technique can create a sense of natural proportion in the unfolding of a musical work. The composer Bela Bartok is often cited as having incorporated Fibonacci relationships into his music, though the extent of this remains debated. Other 20th century composers experimented with mathematical structures, including Fibonacci sequences. Whether listeners consciously perceive these proportions is uncertain, but the technique has influenced avant-garde and contemporary classical music. Music and mathematics share deep connections, and Fibonacci numbers offer composers a framework for organizing time and structure. Orchestras around the world perform works shaped by these mathematical principles. The piano keyboard reflects patterns related to Fibonacci numbers. Examining a piano keyboard reveals patterns that connect to the Fibonacci sequence. Within one octave, there are 13 keys, 8 white and 5 black. The black keys are arranged in groups of 2 and 3. All of these numbers are Fibonacci numbers: 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. This arrangement is not the result of intentional Fibonacci design, but rather reflects the mathematical structure of Western music theory, which itself is based on ratios and intervals. The consonant intervals that form the basis of harmony involve simple frequency ratios, and these ratios generate scales that happen to produce Fibonacci-related counts. The piano thus embodies a convergence of mathematics and musical tradition. Each time a pianist touches the keys, they engage with a structure that echoes the Fibonacci sequence. The musical intervals we find pleasing share mathematical roots with the patterns we find beautiful in nature. Poets and writers have experimented with Fibonacci syllable counts. The Fibonacci sequence has inspired experimental poetry forms. In a Fib poem, each line contains a number of syllables corresponding to successive Fibonacci numbers. A typical fib moves through 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 syllables per line, creating a structure that expands naturally as the poem progresses. This form emerged in the early 21st century as poets sought new constraints for creative expression. The expanding line lengths mirror the sequence's growth, giving fib poems a distinctive rhythm. Other writers have experimented with Fibonacci-based chapter lengths, stanza structures, or narrative pacing. These experiments explore whether mathematical constraints can enhance or inspire creative writing. The fib and similar forms demonstrate that the Fibonacci sequence continues to find new expressions across artistic domains. Writers around the world have embraced these mathematical forms as creative challenges. Psychological studies suggest humans find golden ratio proportions pleasing. Researchers have conducted experiments testing whether people prefer rectangles, faces, and other forms proportioned according to the golden ratio. Results have been mixed, with some studies finding significant preferences and others finding no clear effect. The appeal of the golden ratio may depend on context, culture, and individual differences. However, the persistence of golden ratio use in art and design suggests that many people do find these proportions attractive, at least under some circumstances. The psychological appeal of the golden ratio may stem from its prevalence in nature, making it subconsciously familiar. Alternatively, the smooth mathematical properties of the ratio may create visual harmony that the brain processes efficiently. Research continues to explore why certain proportions feel right and whether the golden ratio holds special status among them. The psychology of aesthetic preference remains an active and fascinating field of inquiry. The brain may be wired to recognize balanced patterns instinctively. Human visual perception appears tuned to detect symmetry, proportion, and pattern. These abilities would have been useful for our ancestors in recognizing faces, evaluating mates, and navigating environments. The brain contains dedicated neural circuits for processing visual patterns, and these circuits may respond preferentially to certain configurations. Golden ratio proportions might activate these pattern recognition systems in ways that feel pleasing or natural. Neuroimaging studies have begun to explore how the brain responds to different proportional relationships. The findings suggest that mathematical harmony in visual stimuli correlates with activation in brain regions associated with reward and aesthetic appreciation. This hardwired sensitivity to pattern may explain why Fibonacci geometry feels so appealing. The brain that evolved to detect patterns in the wild now finds pleasure in the same patterns appearing in art and architecture. Our visual system carries the legacy of millions of years of evolution, shaping what we find beautiful. Symmetry and proportion activate reward centers in the brain. Neuroscientific research has shown that viewing symmetrical and well-proportioned images activates reward-related brain regions. These are the same circuits that respond to food, social connection, and other pleasurable experiences. The connection suggests that aesthetic appreciation has biological roots, not merely cultural ones. When we find something beautiful, our brains are literally rewarding us for paying attention to it. Proportions close to the golden ratio may be particularly effective at triggering these reward responses, though research is ongoing. This neurological basis for aesthetic preference helps explain why mathematical proportions in art have such enduring appeal. The pleasure we take in balanced compositions is not arbitrary, but reflects how our brains have evolved to interact with the world. Beauty and mathematics meet in the reward centers of the human brain. Our aesthetic experiences have deep biological foundations that science is only beginning to understand. Cultural exposure reinforces appreciation for harmonious designs. While some aesthetic preferences may be innate, culture also shapes what we find beautiful. Exposure to art, architecture, and design that employ golden ratio proportions may train the eye to appreciate these relationships. People raised in environments rich with such proportions might develop stronger preferences for them. Cultural transmission of aesthetic ideals amplifies and refines biologically based tendencies. This interplay between nature and culture makes studying aesthetic preferences complex. The golden ratio may be both a natural attractor and a cultural convention, each reinforcing the other. Education in art and design often explicitly teaches the golden ratio, further spreading awareness and appreciation. Our aesthetic sense is a product of both the brains we inherit and the cultures we inhabit. The beauty we perceive results from countless influences, both biological and learned. Weather systems sometimes form spiral patterns similar to Fibonacci curves. Atmospheric phenomena frequently display spiraling patterns that share mathematical properties with Fibonacci spirals. Low-pressure systems in temperate latitudes spin around central cores, their cloud bands curving outward in shapes resembling logarithmic spirals. These patterns emerge from the Coriolis effect and the pressure gradients driving the system. Cyclones, typhoons, and extratropical storms all exhibit versions of this spiral structure. The resemblance to biological spirals is striking, though the underlying physics differs significantly. Whether spirals are fluid dynamics written large across the sky, visible in satellite imagery. The mathematics of rotating flows naturally produces spiral arms that can persist for days. These atmospheric spirals connect the weather we experience daily to the same geometric family found in shells and galaxies. Nature uses the spiral across vastly different domains. Meteorologists study these spiral forms to better understand and predict severe weather events. Ocean currents can swirl in large-scale spiral formations. The world's oceans contain vast rotating current systems called gyres that spiral slowly across thousands of kilometers. These gyres are driven by wind patterns, the Coriolis effect, and differences in water temperature and salinity. The major subtropical gyres rotate clockwise in the northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Smaller eddies spin off from main currents, creating nested spirals within the larger circulation. These oceanic spirals transport heat, nutrients, and marine life across ocean basins. The mathematics governing their rotation shares features with other natural spirals, though the scales and timescales are immense. Ocean spirals are invisible from the surface, but reveal themselves in satellite measurements and drifter trajectories. The seas that cover most of our planet are organized by the same spiral geometry found in the smallest shells. Ocean circulation patterns influence climate and weather patterns across the entire globe. River deltas branch in fractal patterns that echo Fibonacci geometry. Where rivers meet the sea, they often spread into delta systems with branching channels that distribute water and sediment across broad floodplains. The branching pattern of a delta displays fractal properties, with similar structures repeating at different scales. This self-similarity connects deltas to Fibonacci-related geometry, where each part reflects the whole. The branching angles and proportions that emerge in deltas are not random, but reflect the physics of water flow through sediment. Efficient transport of water requires channel geometries that minimize energy loss. The resulting patterns often approximate mathematical optima similar to those seen in plant branching. River deltas are landscapes shaped by water and time, their fractal forms recording the patient work of sediment and flow. They connect the geometry of rivers to the broader family of Fibonacci patterns. These wetland ecosystems support remarkably diverse communities of plants and animals. Mountain ranges show repeating patterns across different scales. Viewed from above, mountain ranges reveal patterns that repeat at different scales, from individual peaks down to the ridges and valleys that compose them. This fractal character means that the shape of a mountain looks similar whether viewed up close or from a great distance. The processes that create mountains, including tectonic uplift, erosion, and weathering, naturally produce self-similar structures. While mountains do not display obvious spirals, the fractal branching of ridges and drainage systems connects them to Fibonacci-related geometry. The mathematics of erosion involves feedback processes that generate complexity from simple rules. Walking through mountains, we traverse landscapes shaped by the same mathematical principles underlying spirals and branching. The grandeur of mountain scenery emerges from deep connections between geology and geometry. Mountain vistas that take our breath away are sculpted by mathematics operating over millions of years. Hikers and climbers experience these fractal landscapes with every step they take. Lightning bolts branch in fractal paths. When lightning strikes, it follows branching paths that spread outward like the roots of a tree turned upside down. These paths are not predetermined, but emerge as the electrical discharge seeks the path of least resistance through the atmosphere. The resulting pattern displays fractal properties, with smaller branches resembling the larger channel from which they diverge. Each lightning stroke is unique, yet all share common geometric characteristics rooted in the physics of electrical breakdown. The fractal dimension of lightning has been measured and compared to other natural branching systems. Lightning happens too fast for the eye to analyze, but high-speed photography reveals its intricate structure. The branching pattern of lightning connects atmospheric electricity to the same mathematical family as river networks and blood vessels. Nature's geometry appears even in phenomena that last only fractions of a second. Scientists continue to study lightning to better understand its fractal formation. Snowflakes exhibit six-fold symmetry with intricate branching. Snowflakes form when water vapor crystallizes around tiny particles in clouds. The hexagonal crystal structure of ice gives snowflakes their characteristic six-fold symmetry. As the crystal grows, branches sprout from each of the six arms, and smaller branches sprout from those, creating intricate fractal patterns. Each snowflake records the temperature and humidity conditions it encountered during its descent through the atmosphere. The branching geometry reflects the physics of crystal growth, where ice preferentially accumulates at corners and edges. No two snowflakes are exactly alike, yet all share the same underlying symmetry. The fractal nature of snowflake arms connects them to the broader family of branching patterns in nature. Each snowflake is a tiny, frozen record of mathematical beauty. Winter storms scatter billions of these delicate fractal crystals, each one a unique expression of ice geometry. Children and scientists alike marvel at the intricate beauty of these frozen structures. Crystals grow in geometric patterns governed by atomic forces. The shapes of crystals reflect the arrangement of atoms or molecules within them. As crystals grow, new material adds onto existing surfaces according to the rules of atomic bonding. The result is remarkably regular geometric forms, from cubic salt crystals to hexagonal quartz. These shapes are not imposed from outside, but emerge naturally from the physics of atomic interactions. Certain crystal types display proportions that approach the golden ratio, particularly those with five-fold or ten-fold symmetry. The regularity of crystal geometry was among the earliest evidence that matter is composed of discrete atoms. Crystal growth demonstrates how simple rules of atomic attraction generate macroscopic order. Each crystal is a monument to the mathematics governing the microscopic world. Gem collectors and scientists alike appreciate the precision with which crystals express their internal geometry. Museums around the world display stunning examples of crystal geometry. Quasicrystals display golden ratio relationships in their structure. Quasicrystals are a remarkable class of materials discovered in the 1980s that display ordered but non-repeating atomic arrangements. Unlike ordinary crystals, which have periodic structures, quasicrystals exhibit patterns that never exactly repeat. These patterns often involve five-fold symmetry and proportions directly related to the golden ratio. The discovery of quasicrystals challenged existing theories of matter and earned a Nobel Prize for the scientist who persisted in studying them despite initial skepticism. Quasicrystal geometry can be described using mathematical tilings that incorporate the golden ratio as a fundamental element. These materials represent a direct physical manifestation of Fibonacci mathematics at the atomic level. Objects containing quasicrystals exist with properties unlike ordinary metals. The golden ratio thus appears not only in living nature, but in the arrangement of atoms themselves. Quasicrystals remind us that Fibonacci mathematics pervades even the structure of matter. The fine structure constant in physics remains one of nature's mysteries. Physicists have long been fascinated by the fine structure constant, a fundamental number that characterizes the strength of electromagnetic interactions. Its value is approximately 1 divided by 137, a number uncannily close to 137.5, the golden angle in degrees. Speculations about connections between the fine structure constant and the golden ratio, or Fibonacci numbers, have circulated for decades. However, no established theory links these values in a meaningful way. The fine structure constant remains one of the great mysteries of physics, its value apparently arbitrary yet essential to the existence of atoms as we know them. Whether its proximity to Fibonacci-related numbers is coincidence or hints at deeper structure remains an open question. The constant invites wonder at the mysterious numerical bedrock of the universe. Physicists continue to seek explanations for why this number has the value it does. Some researchers explore connections between Fibonacci and fundamental constants. Scientists and mathematicians have searched for Fibonacci relationships in the constants that govern physics. The attempts range from rigorous mathematical investigations to more speculative numerology. Occasional apparent correspondences emerge, though most are likely coincidental given the vast number of comparisons that can be made. The desire to find Fibonacci patterns in fundamental physics reflects a deep human wish for underlying simplicity and order. So far, no established physical theory derives its constants from Fibonacci relationships. However, the exploration itself has value, sometimes leading to genuine insights even when initial hypotheses prove wrong. The Fibonacci sequence occupies a peculiar place in intellectual culture, hovering between mathematics, aesthetics, and mysticism. The search for connections to physics continues, driven by curiosity and the hope that nature's patterns run deeper than we yet understand. Each negative result teaches us something about the boundaries of Fibonacci's influence. Ecosystem food webs sometimes show fractal branching patterns. Ecologists studying the networks of who eats whom in ecosystems have noted fractal-like properties in the structure of food webs. These networks branch and connect in ways that display similar complexity at different scales. A small pond may have a food web structure mathematically similar to a vast ocean ecosystem, despite enormous differences in size and species. The fractal nature of food webs may reflect underlying constraints on how energy flows through ecosystems. Efficient energy transfer favors certain network architectures, and these may converge on patterns related to Fibonacci geometry. The branching of ecological relationships echoes the branching of rivers, trees, and blood vessels. Food webs connect mathematics to the living relationships that sustain ecosystems. The geometry of who eats whom is yet another expression of nature's preference for efficient branching. Understanding these patterns helps ecologists predict how ecosystems respond to disturbance. Coral reefs grow in complex fractal formations. Coral reefs are among the most structurally complex habitats on Earth. Individual coral colonies grow by adding new polyps at their margins, and the resulting shapes often display fractal properties. Some corals grow in branching forms that resemble trees, while others form massive domes or intricate plates. The branching species in particular show self-similar geometry, with small portions of the colony resembling the whole. This complexity provides habitat for an enormous diversity of marine life. The fractal surface area of a coral reef greatly exceeds what a simple smooth surface would offer. Coral geometry maximizes the interfaces where light, nutrients, and water exchange can occur. The reef as a whole is a massive three-dimensional fractal built by billions of tiny animals over centuries. Coral reefs connect marine biodiversity to the mathematics of growth and form. Divers exploring healthy reefs witness fractal architecture, supporting vibrant ecosystems. Forests display self-similar, branching from trunk to twig. A forest is a collection of fractal objects, each tree repeating branching patterns from its massive trunk down to its finest twigs. This self-similarity means that the branching architecture of a twig resembles that of a major limb, which in turn resembles the whole tree. The consistency of branching rules allows trees to grow efficiently while distributing leaves throughout a three-dimensional volume. The fractal nature of trees has been modeled mathematically, reproducing realistic tree shapes from simple branching algorithms. These models demonstrate that complex forms can emerge from the repetition of basic patterns. Walking through a forest, we are surrounded by fractal structures that filter light, exchange gases, and shelter countless organisms. The geometry we find beautiful in forests is the same geometry that makes them function. Trees embody Fibonacci principles in their patient, branching growth. Each forest is a living gallery of fractal art created by centuries of growth. Predator-prey dynamics can be influenced by habitat geometry. The spatial structure of an environment affects how predators and prey interact. Habitats with fractal geometry provide more edges, hiding places, and microhabitats than simple environments. This complexity can influence population dynamics, allowing prey to evade predators more effectively or giving predators more opportunities for ambush. Models incorporating fractal habitat structure produce different predictions than models assuming uniform space. The geometry of the environment is thus an active factor in ecological relationships, not merely a backdrop. Fibonacci-related branching in vegetation creates the structural complexity that shapes these interactions. The mathematics of habitat form connects to the lives and deaths of organisms struggling to survive. Ecology and geometry intersect wherever organisms navigate complex environments. The survival of individual animals can depend on the fractal structure of the landscapes they inhabit. This understanding helps wildlife managers design more effective conservation areas. Mathematical models help scientists understand natural spiral formation. Researchers use mathematical models to explore how spirals emerge in biological and physical systems. These models specify growth rules and simulate the development of structures over time. By adjusting parameters, scientists can reproduce the spirals seen in sunflowers, shells, and galaxies. Models reveal which conditions produce Fibonacci spirals and which produce other patterns. They also help explain why certain configurations are stable while others are not. The success of mathematical modeling in this domain demonstrates the power of mathematics to describe natural phenomena. Models serve as laboratories where hypotheses can be tested without disturbing actual organisms. The interplay between observation, modeling, and theory drives our understanding of spiral formation. Mathematics provides a language for expressing what nature accomplishes through growth. Computer models have become essential tools for researchers studying Fibonacci patterns across disciplines. International research teams collaborate on increasingly sophisticated models. Computer simulations reproduce Fibonacci patterns from simple growth rules. With the advent of powerful computers, simulating natural growth processes has become increasingly sophisticated. Algorithms modeling leaf emergence, shell accretion, or galactic rotation can generate patterns strikingly similar to those found in nature. These simulations typically involve simple, iterative rules applied many times. The emergence of Fibonacci spirals from such rules demonstrates that complex outcomes need not require complex instructions. The simulation approach has proven valuable for testing hypotheses about how growth rules produce observed patterns. By varying parameters, researchers can explore what happens when conditions change. Computer simulations bridge the gap between abstract mathematics and observable biology. They confirm that the Fibonacci sequence is not imposed on nature, but emerges naturally from growth dynamics. Modern computing power allows ever more detailed explorations of how simple rules generate natural complexity. Every year brings more powerful tools for exploring these mathematical mysteries. Genetic regulation guides the emergence of spiral leaf arrangements. The spiral patterns seen in Phyllotaxis are ultimately encoded in the plant's genetic instructions. Genes regulate the production of hormones that control where and when new leaves emerge. Mutations in these genes can alter the spiral angle, producing plants with different leaf arrangements. Studies of model plants like Arabidopsis have identified specific genes involved in Phyllotaxis regulation. The interplay between genes, hormones, and physical forces creates the reliable spiral patterns observed in most plants. Genetic research has illuminated the molecular mechanisms underlying patterns that mathematicians described long before genes were understood. The golden angle emerges from genetic instructions refined by natural selection over vast evolutionary timescales. DNA carries the blueprint for Fibonacci geometry in every cell of the plant. The intersection of genetics and mathematics reveals how life encodes beauty at the molecular level. Researchers continue to identify new genes involved in this remarkable process. Hormones like auxin influence where new leaves form on a stem. The plant hormone auxin plays a central role in determining Phyllotaxis. Auxin accumulates at certain points on the growing tip of a stem, and these accumulation sites become the locations of new leaf primordia. The pattern of auxin distribution determines the angle between successive leaves. Mathematical models incorporating auxin transport reproduce the golden angle with remarkable accuracy. The hormone diffuses and is actively transported in ways that naturally generate Fibonacci-related spacing. Mutations that alter auxin transport produce plants with abnormal Phyllotaxis, confirming the hormone's central role. The chemistry of a simple molecule thus creates the mathematical patterns visible in mature plants. Auxin is the molecular messenger through which genetic instructions become geometric reality. This tiny hormone shapes the architecture of plants from seedling to maturity. Plant biologists continue to study auxin signaling in ever greater detail. Mutations can alter the typical Fibonacci patterns in plants. While Fibonacci Phyllotaxis is the norm for most plants, mutations occasionally produce individuals with different arrangements. These mutants provide valuable research tools for understanding how normal Phyllotaxis develops. Some mutations result in leaves arranged in whorls rather than spirals. Others alter the angle between successive leaves, producing patterns that deviate from the golden angle. By studying what goes wrong in mutants, scientists learn what normally goes right. The genetic basis of Fibonacci patterns becomes visible when mutations disrupt the usual program. These unusual plants remind us that Fibonacci geometry is not inevitable, but the result of specific developmental mechanisms. Mutations reveal the machinery underlying the patterns we take for granted. Abnormal phyllotaxis in mutant plants provides windows into the normally hidden processes of development. Research laboratories around the world maintain collections of these fascinating mutant plants. Natural variation means Fibonacci patterns are approximations rather than exact. In the natural world, Fibonacci patterns are tendencies rather than rigid rules. Sunflower spiral counts may vary from expected Fibonacci numbers by a few percent. Shell spirals approximate but do not perfectly match golden spirals. Environmental factors, developmental noise, and genetic variation all introduce deviations from mathematical ideals. This messiness is an essential feature of biology, where flexibility enables adaptation. The remarkable finding is not that nature achieves perfect Fibonacci geometry, but that it comes so close so often. The underlying mathematical relationships provide scaffolding that development elaborates with variation. Nature's patterns are robust enough to persist despite perturbations. The Fibonacci sequence captures a central tendency around which real organisms cluster, not a rigid template they must follow exactly. This balance between order and variation is characteristic of living systems everywhere. Individual differences make each organism unique while maintaining overall pattern. This flexibility allows organisms to adapt to their environments. The variation in Fibonacci patterns is not a flaw, but a feature. Organisms must grow in real environments with unpredictable conditions. Strict adherence to mathematical ideals would be maladaptive if it prevented flexible responses to circumstances. The approximate nature of Fibonacci patterns gives organisms room to adjust. A plant growing in shade may modify its leaf arrangement. A shell growing in turbulent water may develop different curves. This plasticity is essential for survival in changing environments. The underlying Fibonacci tendency provides a reliable starting point, while variation allows fine-tuning. Evolution favors designs that balance consistency with flexibility. The imperfection of Fibonacci patterns in nature is itself an adaptation to the unpredictable world. Adaptability and mathematical order coexist in the living forms around us. This balance allows life to thrive in countless different environments. Scientists debate whether Fibonacci patterns are coincidental or functional. The prevalence of Fibonacci patterns in nature has sparked ongoing debate among scientists. Some argue that these patterns are directly functional, providing tangible advantages like optimal packing or structural efficiency. Others suggest the patterns are byproducts of simple growth rules that happen to generate Fibonacci numbers without conveying special advantage. Still others caution that humans may overdetect Fibonacci patterns due to confirmation bias. The truth likely varies across different contexts. In some cases, Fibonacci geometry clearly confers advantages. In others, the connection may be weaker or coincidental. The debate motivates careful research and guards against accepting claims uncritically. Science advances by questioning apparent patterns and seeking rigorous explanations. The Fibonacci debate exemplifies how scientific inquiry refines our understanding of nature's mathematics. This discussion continues in journals and conferences around the world. Each new study adds evidence to this ongoing conversation. Evidence suggests these patterns improve growth efficiency. Research supports the view that Fibonacci patterns often enhance growth efficiency in biological systems. The golden angle maximizes exposure of leaves to sunlight. Spiral seed packing maximizes numbers in a given area. Shell spirals maintain constant proportions throughout growth. These advantages would be favored by natural selection, explaining why Fibonacci patterns persist across evolutionary time and diverse lineages. Experimental studies and mathematical models converge on similar conclusions. While not every Fibonacci pattern serves an obvious function, the overall trend supports the idea that the sequence captures real principles of efficient growth. The mathematics of Fibonacci reflects genuine biological optimization. Nature's use of these patterns is not arbitrary, but rooted in the challenges of growth and survival. The evidence grows stronger with each new study examining Fibonacci geometry in living systems. Biologists around the world contribute to this expanding body of research. Fibonacci sequences appear across vastly different scales of nature. One of the most striking features of Fibonacci patterns is their appearance across enormously different scales. The same mathematical relationships found in microscopic cell divisions appear in sunflower heads, seashells, and the arms of spiral galaxies. This scale invariance suggests that the Fibonacci sequence captures something fundamental about growth and organization. The physics and biology of small systems differ greatly from those of cosmic ones, yet similar geometry emerges. This convergence invites wonder and demands explanation. Is there a universal principle that makes Fibonacci patterns appear everywhere, or are the resemblances superficial? The question remains open, but the observation itself is remarkable. From the molecular to the galactic, the Fibonacci sequence threads through nature like a quiet melody. Scale independence is one of the most intriguing properties of these mathematical patterns. Scientists continue searching for deeper explanations of this remarkable universality. The sequence connects the microscopic world to cosmic structures. Fibonacci geometry links the smallest living things to the largest structures in the universe. The spirals in flower heads share mathematical properties with the arms of galaxies spanning hundreds of thousands of light years. This connection does not imply that flowers and galaxies share physical mechanisms, but rather that similar mathematical principles underlie disparate phenomena. The universality of mathematics itself may be the common thread. The equations describing growth, rotation, and flow generate Fibonacci-related patterns regardless of scale. This realization invites a sense of unity across nature's diversity. The same numerical relationships appearing in seeds and stars suggest an underlying harmony. The Fibonacci sequence is a bridge connecting realms that otherwise seem utterly different. From microscopic cells to cosmic spirals, the same quiet mathematics operates throughout the universe. This unity across scales inspires awe and motivates further scientific exploration. Philosophers have pondered the meaning of order in nature. The appearance of mathematical order in nature has prompted philosophical reflection for millennia. Ancient Greeks saw proportion and harmony as expressions of cosmic reason. Medieval thinkers interpreted natural patterns as evidence of divine design. Modern philosophers have explored how mathematical structures relate to physical reality. The Fibonacci sequence and golden ratio have featured in these discussions as examples of deep order pervading the natural world. Some find in these patterns evidence of an underlying rational structure to existence. Others see them as products of selection and physics, no less remarkable, but requiring no metaphysical explanation. The philosophical significance of Fibonacci patterns remains a matter of perspective. What is certain is that the patterns inspire awe and invite contemplation of nature's mysterious order. Philosophers across centuries have sought meaning in the mathematics of the natural world. The questions they raise continue to inspire reflection and debate. The golden ratio is sometimes called nature's secret language. Poets and science communicators have described the golden ratio as a kind of secret code running through the natural world. This evocative language captures the sense that something hidden underlies the visible patterns of leaves, shells, and galaxies. While such language can veer toward mysticism if taken too literally, it points to a genuine phenomenon. The same proportional relationship does appear across diverse contexts in ways that seem almost intentional. Nature, of course, does not speak or encode messages, yet the consistency of golden ratio patterns makes the metaphor appealing. The Fibonacci sequence offers a narrative thread connecting disparate phenomena. Understanding this thread feels like deciphering a quiet message written in the shapes of the world. The metaphor of a secret language captures the wonder of discovering mathematical connections throughout nature. This poetic framing helps make mathematics accessible to broader audiences. Ongoing research continues to reveal new connections to Fibonacci. Scientists continue to discover new contexts in which Fibonacci patterns appear. Research extends from molecular biology to astrophysics, and new techniques enable ever finer analysis of natural forms. Studies using advanced imaging reveal spiral structures previous generations could not observe. Computational models test hypotheses about growth mechanisms, generating Fibonacci patterns. Each year brings new publications documenting Fibonacci relationships in diverse systems. The field remains active because the questions are far from settled. Why do these patterns appear so reliably? What fundamental principles do they reflect? Research into Fibonacci geometry is not merely historical curiosity, but an ongoing scientific enterprise. The sequence that Leonardo of Pisa introduced to Europe centuries ago still prompts fresh discoveries. New technologies continue to reveal Fibonacci patterns in previously unexplored domains. Graduate students and established researchers alike pursue these fascinating questions. The pattern invites wonder at the hidden harmony of the universe. Encountering Fibonacci patterns in nature often inspires a sense of wonder. The realization that simple addition generates forms found in sunflowers and galaxies evokes awe at nature's ingenuity. The pattern is both mathematically accessible and aesthetically moving, making it a touchstone for those who appreciate the beauty of science. Wonder is a valuable state, motivating exploration and deepening engagement with the natural world. The Fibonacci sequence offers an entry point into mathematical thinking that feels concrete and relevant. Each spiral, each petal count, is an invitation to look more closely and ask how such order arises. Wonder at Fibonacci patterns is a gateway to broader curiosity about mathematics, biology, and physics. The sequence reminds us that the world is full of hidden harmonies waiting to be discovered. This sense of wonder has motivated scientific inquiry for centuries and continues to inspire new generations of researchers. May your own wonder continue to grow as you explore the natural world. Fibonacci reminds us that simple rules can create endless complexity. Perhaps the deepest lesson of the Fibonacci sequence is that complexity need not arise from complex origins. The rule is simple enough for a child to understand. Add the previous two numbers to get the next. Yet this elementary operation generates patterns that have fascinated mathematicians for centuries and shaped organisms for millions of years. The emergence of complex forms from simple rules is a theme that runs through many areas of science, from fractals to evolution. Fibonacci offers a particularly elegant example. The sequence demonstrates that understanding complex systems often begins with identifying the simple rules from which they grow. Nature's intricacy flows from patient accumulation rather than elaborate instruction. The Fibonacci sequence in its quiet simplicity, teaches that the universe builds cathedrals from addition. This profound lesson applies far beyond mathematics to how we understand the world itself. Simple beginnings can lead to magnificent endings. And now, the quiet wonders of the Fibonacci sequence begin to gently fade into the stillness of the night. You have wandered through over 100 peaceful truths about nature's hidden pattern, from the simple addition that starts the sequence to the spirals that sweep through galaxies, from the golden angle that arranges leaves to the proportions that artists have admired for millennia, from the curves of seashells to the branching of trees and the structure of the human body itself. You have explored how this gentle pattern guides the growth of plants, the packing of seeds, and the formation of structures both microscopic and cosmic. You have learned that beneath the apparent randomness of nature, there is an elegant order, a quiet rhythm that connects all living things. You are connected to this story more deeply than you may realize. Right now, as you listen, the same mathematical principles that shape sunflowers and nautilus shells are woven into your own body. The proportions of your limbs, the curve of your ear, the spiral of your fingerprints all echo the ancient pattern that has been unfolding since long before humans learned to count. If your eyes feel heavy now, let them close. Let the rhythm of your breath become steady, like the gentle spiral of a shell, like the quiet turning of leaves toward the light, like the endless curve of a galaxy spinning through the cosmos. Tonight, as you rest, the Fibonacci sequence continues its quiet work across the universe. Flowers are arranging their petals in the darkness. Seeds are packing themselves with mathematical precision. Shells are growing in patient spirals beneath the waves, and somewhere, a galaxy is spinning its arms through the vastness of space. You are a small, warm presence within this infinite pattern, peacefully resting among the spirals. Sleep well, sweet dreams, and may you carry with you the quiet knowledge that you are never truly alone, for the Fibonacci sequence is always there, unfolding silently, connecting the smallest seed to the farthest star. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the mysteries of nature's secret pattern. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Drowsy Discovery for more soothing explorations of the mathematics hidden within the world around us. There are more wonders waiting, more secrets hidden in the spirals of shells and the curves of petals, more gentle truths to drift through on quiet evenings. Rest well, and may the gentle rhythm of the Fibonacci sequence keep you company through the night. This has been Drowsy Discovery. Good night.